Okay, hi guys. I want to demonstrate how to build a simple RC airplane, and this is my own design, and I'm calling it the Rammel wing. And so it's a flying wing. It's what some call bank and yank, or aileron and elevator and throttle. And it's going to be a pretty simple build, so maybe you want to just build along or follow it and build your own. But anyway, we'll get started. Okay, so my building board is it's 3/4 inch foam, pink foam, and I've got it taped down to my flat building table and then checked for flatness. And so I've also got a piece of wax paper taped to the top of it so that the glue won't stick to the foam. And I use the foam so that I can pin things down to the foam. I use several different methods of holding things together while the glue dries: pinning, taping, weighting. So let's get started. So the first thing I did is I'm using a 1/2 by 1/2 balsa for the trailing edge. And what I did is I took two 36-inch long, my wingspan. I guess I should give the dimensions of the plane first. So the cord, it's a constant cord wing, 14-inch cord by 49-inch wingspan. So 686 square inches of wing area. So I'm using pre-cut trailing edge stock, balsa stock, on this airplane for the ailerons, and so I'm attaching that to 1/2 by 1/2 balsa trailing edge. So what I did is, since the leading edge and trailing edge are 45 inches long, and then 2 inches on each wingtip with the wingtips. That's how I come up with 49 inches wingspan. So I overlap the two 1/2 by 1/2 balsa that are 36 inches long to get that 45-inch long piece, and then tape those together, and then used a razor saw and cut at an angle, and then attach those two together, and then over that angled joint, then I cut a piece of plywood and attached that plywood to reinforce that joint along the trailing edge. So that's the center, and then I marked the center, and then measured out and cut off the excess off of each end. So it's 45 inches total length. Then I marked out where my ribs are going to go, and I have 4 1/8-inch ribs that'll go in the center section, and they're 2 inches apart, so 1 inch from the center section, 1 inch each way. There's not a rib in the actual center section, and then a rib another 2 inches from that. And then after those 4 1/8-inch ribs, then everything else will be 3/32 ribs, thick ribs, and they're 3 1/4 inch, every 3 1/4 inch from there on out. So that's how I marked the trailing edge, and then I lined up the leading edge spar, which in my case it's a 1/4 inch spruce, and then I transferred those markings to the leading edge so that I knew where to glue those ribs to the leading edge. Okay, so now this can be rotated down like that on the board, and so I should maybe talk about the ribs. So I drew up a rib plan, and I drew the center section will have 1/16 inch sheeting, so it's from the spar back, it's a 1/16 inch removed from the top and the bottom of the spar, so that the sheeting will fit over it. And well, once it's sheeted, it'll be the same size as all the rest of the ribs. There are 2 spars that go lengthwise, and then one, those are 1/4 by 1/4, and then a 1/4 by 1/4 in the front, and then the 1/16 inch sheeting from spar to spar will go around the nose. The other thing I did, so these are 1/8 inch. Once I made shaped all the ribs, then I drew 2 lines so that I knew which was the top, because they may not fit perfectly if you get one upside down. These are pretty close, but anyway, so that they all end up being the same, I have 2 magic marker marks on the top of the top edge so that they all go up. The other thing I did is I am planning to mount the servos in these 1/8 inch ribs, so I made a cutout in the top for the servo, and so the servos can sit, they'll be flush with the top sheeting will go over the servo, and then I'll have a slot cut for the arm to come out of the sheeting. And so I'm using a servo, one for each of the 2 ailerons, and then a servo for the elevator. And they all get mounted in the same place in these 3 of the 4 center ribs. So you'll see that later as I start building. I have this kind of planned out in my head, but not documented on plans, but at least not yet. So these are the center section ribs, and then they're 1/8 inch, and then all the rest of the ribs are 3/32 thick, and they're 4 1/8 inch center section ribs, 12 3/32 ribs. And the only difference between these is this edge is higher to account for that 1/16 inch sheeting, because these won't get sheeted. And then I also cut some holes to lighten up all these ribs. So right now these are all pinned together. I have 3 straight pins pinning the stack together so I could get all the sanding and cutting and sand the notches into for the spars. So this stack, they're not pinned, but I used the glue stick, and I just put just like 3 stripes of glue to glue the ribs together before I sanded and shaped them and did all the cutting. So to get those apart now, that was this morning. So you don't want to leave that glue too long, or you don't want them glued together permanently. But I will try and find my razor blade. Okay, so just try and find a spot where it can separate a little bit, so you know where the crack is, and get the razor blades, just started right there. And then just kind of try and peel them apart. Hopefully I can do it without breaking it. Okay, so there we got one apart. There we go. So the 3/8 inch ones are, or the 4/8 inch ones are all separated. So that's for the center section. These I think they're in sets of 4 ribs each, because I cut them out of a sheet of 3/32 by 4 inch wide by 36 inch long, and I was able to get four ribs cut out. Grab a needle nose. 4 ribs cut out from each board. Each 36 inch long board. So it's a little tricky, but I was able to get them fit on there. So I have 3 pins in this stack of ribs. So the way I did these ribs is I put the template on there, traced around it with a pen, and then cut it out a little larger than the part that was traced out. And then once I got the rough shape cut out, then I sanded the outside to shape with a disc sander, and sanded up to the line. See how these come apart now. I don't know. Then I drilled a hole in each one. I drew basically a shape that I was going to cut out. Drilled a hole in the corner of each of these, and then used the scroll saw use that scroll saw to cut each one of these openings. There's 3 openings, and that's to save weight. So there we got 3. So these are, there's one that's a loose one. Okay. Yeah, you don't want to leave this glue stick glue on too long, otherwise they'll be permanently glued together. But you need to have them glued well enough so that they don't all separate when you're trying to do the sanding and cutting. Try not to break these when they're trying to get them apart. There we go. So these are just glued in 3 places. There we go. Alright, so I've got 12 3/32 ribs and 4 1/8 inch ribs.